Well, welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson, and on this show we discuss many of the issues facing boomers, their parents, and what we know is an aging population. And I just want to, thank all of you for listening in and downloading our free apps on that you can get on your iPhone and on your Android phone. Just have to type in Aging Boomers, and you could download the app for free and listen to all the shows. Also, you could go to iTunes as well, and you could sign in there, make comments, give us your input, which has all been very, very good. So thank you so much. Before I interview our guest today, I'd just like to let everybody know who the show's sponsor is, Elder Care Resources USA. .com, information for an aging world. You can enjoy informative articles, watch videos, download helpful guides, learn from nationally recognized experts, and connect with key local providers. Visit eldercareresourcesusa.com. Also, if you happen to be in California, you could go to the local sites, which is ecrbayarea.com. Also in Sacramento and L.A., ecrsacramento.com, ecrlosangeles.com. So visit, a lot of good information. Also, as a sponsor, is Senior Care Authority, a nationally network of senior living experts around the country. So if you're working with a loved one who may need some more assistance and like an assisted living or memory care, visit seniorcareauthority.com and you could connect with an expert around the country. So with that, I'd like to introduce Roy Litherland, who's an attorney whose practice emphasizes elder law, special needs, and estate planning. Roy has practiced law in Silicon Valley for the last 38 years and is certified as a legal specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law by the California State Bar of Legal Specialization. In addition, in his extensive legal background, Roy was also previously licensed as a certified public accountant. Roy is a member of the designated Fellow of American Academy of Estate Planning Attorneys, an organization that fosters excellence in estate planning. So, Roy, thanks for joining us on the Aging Boomers. Really appreciate it.
Well, Frank, thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And we're going to talk about a subject matter that many people find confusing, so I'm going to have you clarify for everybody. You hear all these terms, Medicare, medi-cal, Medicaid. Can you kind of just give us an overview of those three things so people have kind of an idea? I know we're going to be talking more on the medi-cal, Medicaid side, but give us an overview of that. Those terms so people understand.
Frank, that's an excellent place to start because indeed there is a lot of confusion about that. So I'll take just a minute to distinguish between Medicare, Medicaid, and Medi-cal. So Medicare is a federal statute, and its primary function is to allow people over age 65 to be able to obtain reasonable cost medical insurance. Now, there are other things that it will do, but that's its primary function. Then there is Medicaid, which is also a federal statute. And what it is an enabling as well as a funding statute. Very simply, when Medicaid, the federal statute, was passed back in 1965, it provided a structure for a public assistance program, and each of the states could elect to participate or not. If they elected to participate, then each participating state would have to pass legislation in conformity with the federal Medicaid structure. And if they did so, then the federal government would fund, by transferring money from the federal government down to the state, to be used to implement those public assistance programs. Now, as I said, each state has to pass their own laws in conformity with that. In California, that is called medi-cal. So medi-cal is essentially the laws, the regulations in California that have been enacted in order to conform to the federal Medicaid statute.
Yeah. So there are, in other states, most often I would say they call it Medicaid, but indeed they may have another name they give it, and just like in California calling it medi-cal, I know Arizona, I can't even remember the name, but it has nothing to do with medi in the name. So that's the case, right? Each state, if they participate, can, in a sense, call this program what they want.
And they do.
Yeah, which adds to the confusion, I think. So.
I'm absolutely sure of that as well, especially if someone's trying to do their own research online. Right. You just never know what you're going to end up looking at.
Right. So I think there is a perception out there with Medicaid and the California version, Medi-cal, that you really have to be down to practically your last dime before you could get any help with long-term care from the government. And I guess that's true, but there's a lot more to that. Is that correct?
Frank, that's absolutely correct. I think the answer is a definite yes, no, or a maybe.
Right.
So what I'd like to do is just clarify one aspect. We're talking here about skilled nursing facility care.
Right.
And first I wanted to address a common misconception that people have that Medicare is going to pay for their skilled nursing home costs. Now, the reality is that for 98% of all of the people who qualify for Medicare, 98% of them will never qualify to have Medicare pay any of their skilled nursing home costs. That's going to be limited to about 2% of the entire Medicare population. And as to that 2%, what Medicare pays for is very limited. Mm-hmm. So assuming that a person is part of that 2%, then Medicare will pay for the first 20 days of skilled nursing home costs. And after that 20 days, for the next 80 days, the person in the skilled nursing home will pay a deductible of $152 per day, and that number changes annually. And then Medicare will pay the excess. But at the end of 100 days, Medicare pays nothing whatsoever. So you are now completely on your own. Now, we also know that statistically, the average stay in a skilled nursing facility is 1.84 years. And so you can see that 100 days of assistance isn't going to really help a lot for most people. Right. Also, here in the Bay Area, we're looking at well over $300 per day as a typical cost for skilled nursing facility care. So Medicare just isn't going to be a technique for taking care of that. Now, moving to the issue of whether or not you have to be broke in order to qualify for Medicaid/Medi-cal, the answer is that there are a number of assets you can have and still qualify for Medicaid/Medi-cal. An example of that would be your personal household effects, one automobile, a cemetery plot, $2,000 worth of non-exempt assets. And that's the number people usually look at, which is, I can't have more than $2,000 worth of cash or investments. And if I have more than that, I can't qualify for Medicaid/Medi-cal, and that's true. There is one major asset, however, that you can have and still qualify for Medicaid, and that is the family home. So a person can own their family home and still qualify for Medi-cal. Now, then the question becomes, well, is there any way that we can plan, rearrange our assets in such a fashion as to be able to accelerate my qualification for Medi-cal? And the answer is yes, there are a whole variety of techniques that can be used, especially in California, that would allow a person to shift assets, change its ownership structure, things of that nature, so that they can qualify for Medi-cal without essentially dissipating all of their assets.
Right. I hear and people listening to this and why we wanted to have you on the show is I've heard, and as you know, I'm in the business day to day and working with families, and quite often I hear, well, we want to, get approved on Medi-cal, and we have too much money, so I'm just going to take it and put it under my son's name or whatever, and they think that there's a easy, way to do it, and it's not that it's difficult, but it probably needs someone like yourself to help them through that process so it's done properly. Correct?
Well, let's talk about that.
Okay.
There's the easy way of doing it, which is almost always criminal. For instance, people, let's just be honest about that. Right. There are people who decide, okay, I'm going to take the poor man's approach to this. I'm going to give my assets to my kids. I'm going to apply for Medi-cal, and when answering the question, have I made any gifts, I'm going to answer no.
Mm-hmm. Then we'll go visit them on Sundays, right?
Yeah, well, we're going to end up going to visit them on Sundays because, you see, that is welfare fraud, and that's a felony.
Right.
Now, in particular, I find that to be a very foolish, short-sighted approach, given the fact that, especially here in California, there are so many techniques whereby you can achieve the same goal and do it within the confines of the rules, the regulations of Medi-cal, do it perfectly legally. So, just transferring the money and then lying on the application is certainly something that, just mystifies me. But I guess that's primarily for people who don't know that there is an alternative.
Yeah. You touched on nursing homes, and again, I know this varies state to state, but, first of all, some people think that Medicare, which is more the health insurance for seniors, will pay for nursing, and you clarify that. But they also think it may even pay for assisted living, or home care or whatever, and that's not the case as well. There might be specific instances that it could, but generally speaking, it doesn't for anything, any type of long-term care. So if somebody were to get approved on Medi-cal, and in some states Medicaid, their choice for that long-term care, if they needed a place to live and get care on a day-to-day basis, for the most part, is a skilled nursing facility, correct?
Well, okay. So let's just kind of clarify that.
Okay.
Medicaid, Medi-cal will pay the cost for skilled nursing facility care, but it will not pay for assisted living, board and care.
Which are the board and care, for those who don't know, it's, those are smaller, like approximately 6-bed licensed care homes that are pretty prominent in California and also exist in many other states. So I just want to clarify that.
And we find them, in all neighborhoods. And so Medi-cal, Medicaid will not pay for those. There is in California an in-home support services program that will provide some limited support financially to have somebody come into the home and assist somebody. But in order to qualify for that, you have to have very, very limited income. And, something like $684 a month, as I recall. And if you have income in excess of those numbers, then your share of cost increases dramatically. So essentially, there's not a lot of help there if you're trying to stay at home. So Medi-cal is going to be used primarily in the skilled nursing facility arena. Now, I'd like to take just a moment to distinguish between a skilled nursing facility and an assisted living facility.
That'd be great.
Because legally, a skilled nursing facility has to have a licensed doctor or a licensed registered nurse on staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The difference between a skilled nursing facility and an assisted living facility is that the assisted living facility does not have that kind of person involved. Now, the reason I mention that is because you can have facilities where you have one building and this wing over here is skilled nursing facility, and this wing over here is an assisted living facility. But for the fact that over in this wing you have a registered nurse wandering around, there's essentially no difference between the level of care that's being provided or even the facilities. So a lot of people think that a skilled nursing facility means that, mom is going to go into a bed and be there. But that doesn't necessarily have to be true. There are some very, very nice skilled nursing facilities that you would be just amazed at how it contradicts the normal perception of a skilled nursing facility. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, just because of economic necessity, we have found that we help our clients get qualified to have a doctor prescribe a skilled nursing facility and then get them into a really nice facility that isn't, what you envision the normal skilled nursing facility to be. And like I said, sometimes it's just an economic necessity because, there's no money to pay for assisted living care.
Now, what if let's say the family or that individual, they do have some money to pay for assisted living care, and maybe their loved one, doesn't need yet to be in a skilled nursing. They're fine to be in the quote social model versus that medical model, but they know that the mom or dad will probably get to that point, or the dollars are going to get to a point where they don't want to keep funding, in a sense, that funding that assisted living facility. So you could get approved. I guess this is a question, but my assumption is you could get approved on Medi-cal or Medicaid, but you don't have to, in a sense, begin using it until you're ready. So Could there be funds then available for assisted living before maybe taking that next step into a skilled nursing facility?
Absolutely. And in conjunction with that, what I need to do is address the issue of mental capacity. Let's face it, there are a number of people, a lot of people who are in a skilled nursing facility because they have lost mental capacity. They can't stay at home by themselves any longer. It would be dangerous for them to do so. They actually can't be, for instance, in an assisted living facility because of their lack of mental capacity. They need more attention, more assistance than they would get in an assisted living facility. Mm-hmm. And the problem becomes is that we can do an awful lot of rearranging of a person's assets in order to qualify for medi-cal. However, they need to have mental capacity to be able to do it. For instance, someone who lacks mental capacity can't sign a deed giving away their home to their children to avoid the medi-cal recovery lien. And we can talk about that a little bit later if you'd like. Mm-hmm. Or to be able to make gifts in such a fashion to reduce their non-exempt assets below $2,000. Now, the heartbreak is that if someone lacks mental capacity and they really need to rearrange their assets in order to qualify for medi-cal so they can preserve limited assets for their needs that are not going to be provided by the medi-cal system, they lack mental capacity and can't do it. So that addresses the problem of appropriate pre-planning. Now, by that I mean that if a person has a very comprehensive estate plan that includes provisions that will allow the family to do medi-cal planning for them in the event of incapacity, then we're okay. And I call those provisions medi-cal triggers. So if a person has, for instance, a good, durable power of attorney that includes specific provisions authorizing the family, the holder of the power of attorney, to do medi-cal planning, now we have the ability to do so. Now, without that specific authority, it can create problems. For instance, under the California law, the ability to gift your principal's assets away is never and cannot be implied in a durable power of attorney. So in order for a holder of a durable power of attorney to make gifts in anticipation of or part of a medi-cal planning strategy, there has to be the specific authority in it allowing them to make gifts. Just as importantly, anytime, well, actually, the most of the time that I find gifting authority in a power of attorney, it is usually limited to whatever the federal gift tax exemption amount is on an annual basis, which is right now $14,000. Well, that's a huge limitation. It doesn't do us any good. Right. In addition, let's pretend that we have gifting authority, and there is no such limitation. Then the question is can we interpret that document to permit the holder of the power of attorney agency to gift away all of their principal's assets, thereby impoverishing the principal so they no longer have the financial means of providing for themselves? Well, unless there's specific instructions and authority in that document permitting or instructing that to occur, it is highly arguable that doing that is elder abuse. And as you know, in California, that's a crime.
Right.
So you need to be very, very careful with making sure that the person's power of attorney document, as well as if they have a trust, their trust contains specific authority granting and instructing that kind of planning to occur.
So if I could just, you said that all eloquently, but if I could recap it with just one phrase, it's don't wait too long and begin planning now. Is that pretty much it? I mean, people that wait too long, it may be difficult depending upon the, cognitive, what their parent or loved one is experiencing cognitively. They may not be able to be in a position to make those decisions.
That's exactly correct. If I may give you an example, Frank.
Sure. We got just to let you know, we got about 2 minutes, but go with it. Go for it.
2-minute example. Okay. Let's pretend that we have someone who lacks mental capacity and has $600,000 worth of securities, and they have no planning documents. There's nothing I can do to help that person qualify for medi-cal. On the other hand, if that person had a home and no planning documents, I could go to court and probably get a judge to agree to allow us to do something. But if that person who has the $800,000 of securities had proper legal documents, I could show them how very quickly we could move the assets under a medi-cal plan and get them qualified. So pre-planning is extremely important.
Yeah. There's so much to know, and I want to make sure that our listeners know how to get a hold of you or someone in your firm. If they have further questions, they want to come in and meet with you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, of course, they could call. Phone number is area code 408-356-9200. Or they could go to our webpage, which is attorneyoffice.com. Attorney
easy.
Office, all is one word, no underlines, no gaps.
Well, Roy,
and we have a lot of information about this kind of planning there.
It's been great. You've been very, very informative. There's a lot to know. We'll have to have you back sometime because there's just so much to know on this subject matter, but it's so very important, especially with a silver tsunami hitting. So
yes.
Yeah. So Roy Litherland, who is an attorney in the San Jose area, right? You're in where are you located again?
In San Jose.
Yeah, right.
Although
in San
the
Jose.
billing address is Campbell.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Roy, and we'll have you back. And thank you all for joining us on the Aging Boomers. Thanks for all your support. Go to iTunes, rate us, let us know what you think about this show and others, and just be safe out there, and we'll talk to y'all soon.